completely had forgotten already.
We believe it.
Yeah.
I don't know what happens.
Okay.
Looks like we're gonna have a nice crowd today. We're just starting. Jim, you're supposed to be fellowshipping here.
Oops.
Yeah, Walter said he's coming today.
Oh, good.
Bobby, you're awfully quiet there. Bobby Masters, we're talking to you.
Yeah, I'm right here.
How
Glad
you
to be
doing?
here. Last couple of weeks I had conference calls that ran overtime, but I'm here today and glad to be here.
Bobby, you can get away with anything. You gave us the
Yeah.
golf cart.
Glad to do it.
How'd you like your picture that we're using for the promotion?
Considering the subject, I thought it turned out pretty good.
Hi, Joan.
For all those who are not seeing video, you may have to go in and manually start your video in order to see yourself and for us to see you.
Yeah, thanks, Chuck, because I screwed up this morning. I didn't have automatic video on. So we're going to kind of get a...
So am I admitted in the meeting? I do not see myself in there.
Where are you? Oh, is that you, Medi?
Yeah.
I don't, what do you call it? I see,
I can see all of you, but I do not see myself.
wow. Well,
Maybe
you know what, do this, Medi. Quit and end yourself and start over again.
Okay, I'll leave the meeting.
Hey, Joan.
And Diane isn't here yet, so I better get ready with my graphics. It's going to be an exciting ride this morning, everybody.
Joan Natali.
She's on.
Can't hear.
She's on. Oh,
Yeah, it looks like she's frozen.
Yeah.
Huh.
That could be the same issue Medi's hitting.
Medi's in California.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes. Beautiful California.
Yeah, it looks like Joan just dropped off. Maybe she's going to try to reconnect.
So what did you want to tell Joan?
I just wanted to confirm with her that she got my no longer used cell phone. I handed that over to Al when he dropped off the ticket.
Diane, you're late.
Yes.
And I've just
today
brought,
I am
well, I can turn my graphics off then.
Yes,
You
no, my
had
other
worried.
meeting ran over. Did you hear me?
No, what did you say?
I said my other meeting ran over.
No excuse, no excuse. Rotary has priority.
No soup for you.
Yes.
What's that, Jack?
Hey, that's a real place too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you don't make the mortgage payment this month. Okay, did we get Medi? Who's on? Oh, that's Church on 0624, right?
Yes.
Okay.
I don't have Medi. No.
We can't start without Medi.
And we lost Joan as well.
Yeah.
I think it's all Bill Payne's fault.
I take
He's messing up by the numbers.
Once again, I've totally screwed up. But we'll see if, but people are coming on. So we're just a few minutes behind today for some reason. There's David. Alan's there. Hi, Alan.
Just a reminder, we need to be careful of Drew's time. He has to drop off at 1 o'clock. He's got another conference call.
We don't care. So Drew, cancel that other meeting.
I tell you what, I don't know if you all feel this way, but I just feel like with the advent of Zoom, everybody's like, well, we can Zoom about that, right? All day. You know, most people, unlike you all, aren't smiling when I talk to them.
Just kidding, Drew.
Believe it, we're about zoomed out too.
Hey, Drew, we have been doing this since March of last year. So we're a little giddy now, but we're having fun.
I can tell there's lots of smiles. Everybody's chuckling, which means either you've over caffeinated or you've already gotten into the bourbon. I'm not sure which one yet.
We're excited to hear your presentation. So we're probably going to skip a lot of things that we shouldn't skip, but that's all right. Tina's here. Boy, what a day.
Yeah. All right.
Hi, Tina.
Hey.
Tina, because we're going to be moving fast, remind me that we have to ask for volunteers to come up to the shelter to work on Wednesday or Thursday this week.
Okay, perfect.
So I'm going to try to remember that. I've highlighted that on my cheat sheet, but you know, there's no guarantee. Well, look, we're going to start, Diane.
All right.
Hear me.
Rotary model, service above self. Please stand, put your hand over your heart, and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, now, Jackie, did I slow down this time enough?
No, not really, Bill. You're going to need some practice.
Okay, but meanwhile, while I'm practicing, let's have a moment's silence. Thank you. It is a wonderful day. Before we go through a few announcements, and I don't know if we'll cover them all, I want to welcome Tammy Hopkins to... Meddy, are you there?
I am here, but I do not see myself on the video.
We don't see you either, Meddy. There's something going on with...
I know, and I reconnected again.
Okay, but we can hear you, Meddy. Can you hear us?
So I can participate then.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And I will ask Walter to click on his video, and Dave, click on your video, because somebody screwed up today and didn't turn your video on. So I was about to introduce and welcome Tammy Hopkins to Cape Charles Rotary. Tammy, tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll go on, but take as long as you like.
Hi, everyone. My husband and I moved to Eastern Shore last August, and we bought a home on Harbor Lane on the Chesapeake Bay, and we're really enjoying shore life. We moved from Sandbridge. We had a beach home at Sandbridge, and we were from Virginia. And I'm an associate broker in real estate, and I've joined Weichert Mason Davis. And I was involved always in community service. As a realtor, I managed like events for Equa Kids in Virginia Beach for the vets and and children. And I've done, I've organized things for veterans, and just, I've always been a believer in community service. So I'd like to help out and be able to help you guys for your mission in the Rotary as a volunteer.
Welcome, Tammy.
Thank you. And we have 3 children, and a structural engineer, a research scientist, and have another daughter that's in Louisiana, but they're scattered. And so we're empty nesters with 2 big dogs, a German Shepherd, a Doberman, 2 birds, and a cat.
Wow. We'll make you all Rotarians. Welcome again, Tammy. And what I'm going to do is follow up with you, Tammy. I'll send you a brochure which will tell you more about our Rotary Club and things we do. And we'd like you to seriously consider becoming a Rotarian.
Right, that would be great.
And work in a volunteer fashion, but in a very organized way where we'll help you with your favorite projects.
Right.
Does that sound like a good deal?
That sounds super.
Well, thank you. So just join in and we'll talk about a few things, and then we'll invite Drew Gruber to talk about Civil War trails with us. But I think the most important thing we ought to address first, so we don't run out of time, is our upcoming golf cart raffle. So Randy, I'm going to ask you to share with us where we are and what our responsibilities are in the raffle. You're on mute. You're still on mute.
There
you go.
Now I'm unmuted. Hopefully last week and before the end of this week, everyone in the club will have received their tickets. 3 people are distributing tickets, Stan Plowden, Al Pascal, and Mike Wojda. And if anyone who's here and does not have tickets by the end of this week, please give me a call or send me an email, and I'll track them down and find out why you don't have tickets and get them to you. But tickets should be in everyone's hands by the end of this week. We are participating this coming Saturday, Cape Charles, at the town-wide yard sale. We're going to have a display at Strawberry Plaza. The cart will be on display. We will have a table set up, hopefully with a banner that tells everyone who we are. If we don't have the banner, we'll tell everyone who we are. But we're going to be selling raffle tickets throughout the day, from probably 10 in the morning till 4 in the afternoon. I don't have a sign-up schedule, but everyone is welcome to stop by, pitch in if you can spend an hour or 2. We have 3 or 4 people who have agreed to be there already, and anyone else stop by and help us out. Going forward, we're in the process of planning events at the 2 campgrounds. Something is going to happen in front of the food line. I'm not sure just yet what that's going to be, but something's going to happen there, and that's going to be in May and hopefully again in June. The intent was to have the proceeds of each member collected at the end of May. We're rethinking that a little bit in terms of anyone who has sold their tickets, as many of them as they're going to sell, wants to get those revenues and unsold tickets, and most importantly, the stubs back to us. They can drop them off to either me or to Paul Strong. If we haven't heard from you by the end of May, we'll be back in contact with you to collect so that we can do a tally by the end of that month, by the end of the month of May. Anyone that has any questions, please feel free to just pick up the phone and call me. I've got a few things going on here at home that are disrupting me, but I'll try and get back to you as soon as I can. That's where we are, unless anyone has some questions.
Randy, I have to, on behalf of the club, thank you again and your team for doing a tremendous job. This is our big event for the year. We weren't able to sell crab cakes, but I think we're going to knock it out of the park. Ticket sales are already going like hotcakes. So you want to get in on that. And if you have an issue, get back to Randy or to me or to any of the board members. And there's nothing that cannot be resolved. I'm asking each club member to be responsible for 20 tickets. And the secret to selling tickets is 3 for $25. Nobody will pass up a bargain. So always offer 3 for $25, and we're going to really go to the bank with this thing this year. Now,
on the optimistic side of that, anyone who needs additional tickets, please let me know. I will get them to you. Just give me a call.
Diane.
Yes.
Did you get my email?
I did. I'll follow up with you.
Thank you.
And they can hear me, but
Eddie, you're trying to talk to us?
I'm trying to fix my camera.
Okay, keep working at it, Medi.
Yeah.
Okay, for those of you who have just come on, turn on your video. The video wasn't set up for automatic this time. So Mark, turn on your video. Super Tuesday was last Tuesday, and it was an overwhelming success. For privacy reasons, I'm not going to announce who gave really big, but a number of our members really pulled out their checkbooks. And I think the district is going to be very proud of Cape Charles. So
I think we can say we do have at least one new Paul Harris Fellow as a result.
Yeah, it's of that caliber, but we can't say who. So enough about that. Service projects, we've got them coming out of our ears. Bob Church, you want to re-announce what you said before?
Yes, I have a meeting with the sheriff of Eastville on Thursday, and he said they're ready to move with the fire hydrant painting project. So I'll get back to you once I have the meeting with the sheriff.
That is great, Paul. Bob, that's super. So get your paintbrushes out, and we'll be painting fire hydrants before we know it. There's Medi.
Hi, hello.
Medi, you made it.
I made it, yeah, thank you.
Perseverance pays off. How's California, Medi?
Well, California is wonderful.
That's great.
But it's 9 o'clock in the morning here and I have to get up early.
Sorry about that.
Anyway, okay. I'm glad that I got into the meeting now.
Thank you. Well, look, we're going to need a handful of volunteers to work at the Eastern Shore Coalition Against Domestic Violence. I always have to catch my breath after saying that. Either on Wednesday or Thursday at 4 o'clock. We're going to help. We're going to work on the playground. When I get the date, I will be getting word out, but I'm going to be there, and just show up with a rake, and we'll get some work done there. We're also going to be doing a little painting, but you needn't worry about that. We need you to rake mulch, rubber mulch, so the kids don't hurt themselves when they fall off the swing and that sort of thing. So Tina, you don't have to worry. We've covered it. The Marianne Smith grant is coming along. The clubs are doing their part. Onancock and Exmoor. And I hope to be able to announce that that has been submitted within a week or two. RLI, what does that stand for? Speak up. Don't be bashful.
Rotary Leadership Institute.
There you go. Medi knows all about it because the first and second classes, that's RLI 1 and RLI 2, will be conducted May 22nd and May 23rd. And the way they work that is on Saturday, it's Saturday morning, half day. And then on Sunday, it's Sunday afternoon. So if you have not participated in RLI, Rotary Leadership Institute 1 or 2, and would like to learn more about Rotary and be more involved with what Rotary is all about, be sure to sign up. You go to DACDB and sign up. And if you don't know what DACDB is, I understand. But if you call me or you call Jackie, we've been through it. We'll help you with that. Medi is signing up for RLI 2 and no 2. And Jackie and I, we're going to be on RLI 3 that same day. No,
I think I'm signing up for RLI 3 too.
Oh, okay. Jackie. Yeah. That's what Jackie said, Medi. I'm sorry. So we're all going to be on 3. So if you, the nice thing, I'll ask Medi to tell you what's great about RLI and what are the benefits, Medi?
Well, it gave me an idea about what the Rotary Club is all about and what the other clubs are doing. And it made me get excited about what we could do in our club too.
Very good. And that's why you do it. You get renewed. All right.
By the way, my name is Mike because I'm using my brother's computer here.
Okay, May 3rd is one of the days during Teacher Appreciation Week. Teacher Appreciation Week is that week. And again, we are buying breakfast for the teachers at Northampton Middle and Northampton High. Wanted you to know how we're spending your money. Mark, how are you? Good to see you. Mary, how are you? Turn your mic on, Mary, because we miss you. Now say something.
Hello,
Mary.
Bill.
There you go. You know, this is a first, Mary. You've signed on and you've made it halfway through the meeting without getting off.
Well, I finished my call for my work and I was kind of late, but I'm glad I can stay through the end of the meeting today. So it's good to see everyone.
Well, it's good to see you, Mary, and you should know the world, especially Cape Charles Rotary, loves you to death. We're going to squeeze you so hard you won't be able to stand yourself. Okay, Paul, how are we doing at COVID?
Well,
Paul, you have to keep it to 3 minutes.
Oh, I can do better than that. Less than a minute. The nationwide and in the state of Virginia, the number of cases continues to gradually creep up. The main reason for that is that the dominant strain in the United States is now the UK variant, and that's also the dominant strain in Virginia, and that's more contagious. but it is covered by the vaccination. So things would be just incredibly worse here, I think, if it weren't for our vaccination campaign, which is going like gangbusters. And so, you know, a larger and larger percentage of our residents in the country in Virginia are getting vaccinated every day. And so that's kept this thing from really what's the word, exploding again like it has some other places in the world. In the good news for our county and in Cape Charles is the number of cases have dropped. I don't know why they went up so much the last couple of weeks, but last week we had 20 new cases in the county and 10 new cases in Cape Charles. And this week, those numbers for the last weekend yesterday are down to 7 in the county and 4 in Cape Charles. So hopefully that's a sign of things to come. I've got my fingers crossed. So if you know anybody that hasn't gotten the vaccination yet, strongly urge them to do so, and keep wearing your masks when you're out, and keep social distancing, because that's what the CDC is telling us to do.
Thank you, Paul. Everybody should know, I think we set another record today. We have 24 participants, and that is pretty good. Must be the weather. So we've got people from coast to coast in this meeting. Now, at 12:30, I'm determined to start with our guest, but I'd like to have a few minutes for anybody who would like to say anything.
Well,
come on, people.
I'd like to say something. After the meeting today, I'd like for the Indivisible History Committee members to remain online, because we are going to meet with Tebia Griffith for the next meeting at 1 o'clock today. We have a guest speaker for the committee regarding the Rosenwald Restoration Project.
Okay, I sent her our link address just in case you didn't, Maddie. So we should have her at 1 o'clock. But that's an open meeting. Anybody else who wants to stay on is welcome to stay. Come on, Al. There must be something you want to say.
Well, I've missed the last couple of meetings because of work and other issues, but I'm glad to be here. That's what I want to say.
There you go, Al. Thank you.
Yeah, Bill.
Yes.
At Cape Charles Main Street, it's working on finding some ways to get some things done in the town as well. And a community project like the one that's going to happen in Eastville could really help a lot as far as the fire hydrants and those types of things. So I'd like to suggest that, I speak with Bob Church offline and see if we can do something for Cape Charles.
Yes, and Reggie, Bob has approached Cape Charles about their fire hydrants. Is that what you're saying?
Well, if he needs help, we can certainly help him.
Okay, well, we'd look for you to join in. Right now, I haven't pressed it because, it's not warm yet, but they claim they don't have the money for paint, which I think is kind of really not true. But we will, we'll push that, and we can always use all the help we can get. And I'll remind everybody once again, as we approach 12:30, on April 21st, Bob and Dennis will be leading an effort to clean the highway.
24th.
24th. Did I say 21st? I meant 24th.
Saturday. Yeah.
Saturday the 24th.
Yes.
Joan has something to say.
I just wanted to mention that I was reading the most recent town manager's weekly report, and it was reported that the group that does the maintenance has started painting the fire hydrants.
Interesting.
You know,
That
this
is
is such a
interesting.
big city, we get all confused. That is amazing, Joan. Well, go ahead, Randy.
No, I'm sorry. I just want to change the subject. Last week, I think David mentioned we ought to be looking at environmental issues. And the thought came, not to me, actually to my wife. Cape Charles, if they haven't done so already, could look into is having a charging station put in there. I would think the town would really benefit because my son has one of those little overpowered golf carts, and he'll go anywhere to get the thing charged. And they want to draw people into town coming along 13. That would be a great draw. So I just throw it out there as an idea. I don't know who would who want to honcho that thing, but it would be a good plus for the town.
Okay, I'm gonna note that and we'll follow up on that. That's a great idea. All right, Drew, are you ready?
Want to do happy dollars?
I'm here.
Oh no, you know we're gonna skip happy dollars.
Right.
I knew there was something missing, but I think that this is going to be such a great presentation. And coming off of Giving Tuesday, we've done a lot. So I think missing one happy dollar. And Chuck, this is a lesson in flexibility. So see, you don't have to follow the rules. You can just on the spot. You'll be the president. You can cancel a meeting even if you want, but don't do that. Don't do that. Drew, why don't you introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about yourself, where you are, what you do, anything you want, and then go through your slides. And you've got 30 minutes, my friend.
Oh, that is too kind, and thanks for having me. Bill, thanks for sending the invitation, and thanks to Mehdi, also known as Mike this morning, for making the connection with me. My name is Drew. I have a lofty title. It's executive director, but by and large, if you see me out working, I'll be in bib overalls with a posthole digger. I'm in charge of the Civil War Trails program, which I'm going to tell you all more about in a few minutes. I was born and raised in Southern New Jersey, spent a lot of time cruising down the Eastern Shore with my family when I was growing up, finding places to vacation and hang out. So we spent a lot of time up and down the Eastern Shore. Didn't really make it over the bridge to the Outer Banks, but we just kind of always stayed in your neck of the woods. So I know your area pretty well, and it's a special place for me. I live in Williamsburg, Virginia now with my wife, Kate, and our 2 cats. I usually, after 5 o'clock, enjoy vinyl records, reading, peace and quiet, bourbon, not Zoom calls. No, I'm a pretty quiet individual, but I travel for most of my life. There's just 2 of us who run this whole program. So several months ago, we had stumbled across, well, let me back up. So I'm super into lighthouses, and I was working on a project in St. Mary's County, Maryland, and got to talking with the folks there. And I joined the U.S. Lighthouse Society, which is a group of people who are super nerds when it comes to lighthouses. And in reading about the Cherrystone Lighthouse, I read about a guy named Peter Jacob Carter. And in finding out about his life, I was incredibly inspired by it. So when I was talking to one of my board members recently about how we have no sites on Virginia's Eastern Shore, she said, well, tell me a good story. And I told her the story about Peter Jacob Carter. And she said, you got to make this a reality. So let me tell you guys a little bit more about our program. I'll try to do it in under 30 minutes, but I hope you find it interesting. It's a unique program. There is really no other program like it, and it's very service oriented. So just for a show of hands, everybody can see this okay? Raise your hand if you can see that. Okay, good, awesome. So Civil War Trails is the world's largest open air museum. Myself and my coworker Chris are in charge of all 1,358 sites across 6 states. But sadly, the 2 counties out on the Eastern Shore have not a single site, not a one. People will cycle, as you see in the photo, our program. We have folks who will paddle between underground railroad sites. We have folks who will follow the Gettysburg campaign in their car. We have folks who will hike Civil War trails. There is all sorts of ways to follow what we do, but we oftentimes like to say we're the world's largest open air museum. So just a little bit about us. It began in 1994 as a way to stitch 12 sites together so you could follow the Confederate Army's retreat from Petersburg to where it will surrender at Appomattox. And they had these big billboards with solar panels, and you'd have to pull up and tune your AM radio station, if you guys remember when AM was actually a thing. And you would hear somebody pop on the radio and tell you what happened there. So what was 12 sites became over 1,300 now. We're in the process of Pennsylvania joining the program. So we're actually expanding right now, which is amazing. But the way that our program works is it's service-based. It is crowdsourced. So normally what happens is we'll have folks who will come to us and say, we have this amazing story about this Underground Railroad site, or we have this amazing story about this Civil War camp, or we have this amazing story about a veteran. And then they come to us and we help them fundraise that site. And then we take all of their research and we build that sign. So when I say a site, what I'm referring to is an interpretive sign like the one that you see there, that gentleman reading at Penmar Park along the Appalachian Trail in Maryland. So when I say 1,350 some odd sites, that's what I mean, a sign that looks exactly like the one that you see there. Now, talking about being sort of crowdsourced and service oriented, we have this product that we build working with communities, right? And it's consistently branded and marketed across the world. But the one thing that people don't really recognize is that when folks go to travel to see Civil War trails, they are bringing what we call economic development with them. They will stay overnight, they'll eat at a local restaurant, they're going to spend money in their community. So as I often say, when I talk to economic development offices, or like when I made the pitch to Cape Main Street, we have an educational product with an economic development mission. And I report to a board of 26. So I have 26 bosses who I get to meet with tomorrow for a 7-hour Zoom call. So just give you a little bit of an idea about how we're set up. I'm going to buzz through these really quick because I think they're really interesting. Interest in history continues to increase. Now, I'm waiting for the 2020 numbers to come out, but I suspect they're not going to change. So if you want to compare something like visitation to historic sites to visitation to breweries, in North Carolina, historic sites beat out beer, which is kind of cool if you think about it. The reason that we see historic sites doing so well, especially right now, and I'll talk about the era of COVID, is because everybody tends to like history. So if you look at all these different travel profiles that are here, recreation travelers, wine travelers, LGBTQ, beer, art, music, everybody tends to like some type of history. It doesn't matter what it is. So if you tell a good story and you let the community speak their truth and use their own voice, you're going to have all these different people who are going to want to take part. So I showed you before the photograph of a hiker who was reading one of our signs. Well, that's a recreation traveler. Or like on the Eastern Shore of Maryland, we're putting in a new sign now. Don't tell anybody yet, but it's going to be about Frederick Douglass, and you have to paddle to get to where he was born. So we're going to be able to tell this story, but you have to paddle to go get to Frederick Douglass's birthplace, which is really cool. The same could be said for music and beer travelers. So if you visit any of our sites outside of Nashville, which is called Music City, our signs are written about music during this era. So, I mean, it's just a way about how we sort of blend history and other culture. Our average age is on the decline. So I happen to think that the average age of a history traveler is 40, down from the average age of 68 that it was in 2015, which is kind of cool. Everybody loves to blame millennials, so you can blame us for anything you want and we'll take it. But 71% of millennials like to visit historic sites, and they specifically like places like Cape Charles. So here's why. You cannot consume Cape Charles anywhere else. You have to be in Cape Charles to enjoy Cape Charles. And that's what millennial travelers call authentic travel. So when they talk about buying food or beverages or products that are authentic, that means it's not coming from Amazon. You have to be somewhere to actually consume what is local. And that's exactly what we do. We put people in the footsteps of history. So here's what life has been like for us throughout COVID. And I appreciated your COVID update before. Since we are an open air museum, we've done quite well. And by that, I mean, we've gotten people outside. So for parents who were thrust into the role of homeschool teachers, they were emailing us as soon as COVID broke out and they were pulling their hair out. Oh my God, how do I teach these lessons? Where can we go? For people who just wanted to get out of the house, they were calling us and they were saying, hey, where could we go to take a hike, or where could we go to get some food and take a picnic? And right after George Floyd was murdered in May, we had a lot of people who reached out to us and said, where can we go to find the inspiring African-American stories? Where can we go where I can take my kids to answer these questions that our nation is currently struggling with? And we're happy to be able to answer all of those things and ideas. In the bottom left here is my coworker, Chris, installing a brand new sign on St. Clement's Island in the middle of the Potomac River. The only way to get to the site is to take your boat there. An incredibly cool site. But again, this is all about the idea of adventuring to go find something historic. So our audience has changed immensely over the last couple of years. So we started working with all of the communities that have Civil War Trail signs and said, how do you want to rewrite these? How do you want to envision them? And since I was talking to you guys who are service oriented, I thought I'd give you 3 examples of how we've worked with other communities and the community leaders that are service oriented to change their Civil War stories. And it's kind of cool. So here's one. This sign is located at South Mountain, Maryland. This is where the Appalachian Trail crosses the United States 40. And the group that we worked with up there, not Rotarians, but it's a group that takes care of their Appalachian Trail. So they have this section of Appalachian Trail between, I think it's Frederick and Harper's Ferry, and this group of hikers, family members, a couple recent immigrants to the country as well. They all take care of this section of the Appalachian Trail. And I said to them, you know, the Civil War people who are coming, they already know this story, but who's your average audience? Who can we speak to? And they said, well, talk about a hiker. And that's what we did on this. So this is the 19th century backpacker. So we rewrote the sign not to be about the battle, which everybody kind of already knows about, but to talk about how people backpacked to and from these sites. So that was a really great example of how we worked with the service group out in the Frederick, Maryland area to rewrite their sign to speak to the average audience. Here's another group we worked with. It's called the Wrightsville Main Street Improvement Association. So sort of like a Main Street program. They had a story that was written about their battle, and it was a typical battle story. It started in the passive voice. So we kind of spiffed it up a little bit. They actually had their kids rewrite it and sort of try to paint a picture. So if you read the first sentence of this at 6:57 p.m., so you can almost imagine the sun starting to set. The crack of a cannon sent a shell hurtling over the heads of the men entrenched behind you. And usually whenever I watch people read this sign, they want to turn around and see those people. And then we also tried to build a little empathy into this one. So the Pennsylvanians had been issued their muskets 6 days earlier. And that gives everybody who approaches the sign who doesn't have military experience a way to sort of empathize with these soldiers because they were brand new at this. Here's another one. This is really new. So this past June, we worked with the Hampton, Virginia Black Lives Matter chapter who had a sign about Mary Peak during their demonstrations this past summer. And I remember looking at the photos in the newspaper and I thought, wow, they're drawing a parallel between what they're doing today and Mary Peak. And so we reached out to this Black Lives Matter chapter, which is out of Hampton University. And we said, hey, I saw you all had a sign about Mary Peak during the demonstrations. Did you know we had a sign about Mary Peak? So we worked with them and the local community religious leaders who all associate with Mary Peak and her descendants. And we rewrote this sign. And this sign is in the graveyard where Mary is buried, and it's located between a brewery and the interstate. So we knew most of our audience were going to be people who were there to drink beer, not necessarily to be reverent of the people who were buried there. So we opened with something that we thought was really evocative, which is if you believed in something strongly enough, would you break the law to do it? And of course, Mary Peak was teaching both free and enslaved African Americans to read when it was illegal to do so. And those are some examples of how we work with service groups to rewrite our signs. We're also doing bilingual signage to make sure that we're catering to all audiences. That means just not white men, but that also means people who don't speak English. So this sign in Chantilly, Virginia, we're rewriting in Spanish and Korean because the community is Spanish and Korean, and we're rewriting the sign to talk about the immigrants who also didn't speak English who fought at that battle. So again, we work with all these organizations, specifically community organizations, to write these signs so that when you travel from community to community, what you're getting is this sort of, I don't know, a dose or a snippet of what's local, I guess you could say. So here's a little bit about how we're funded. This cost to establish a new Civil War Trails site, meaning the sign that we're going to put in the ground, and then all the signs to get people there and all the maps to get people there is $2,600. In this instance, we had a donor who approached us and said, please install a sign about Peter Jacob Carter. I'll give you the money to do it. And that never happens to us. We rarely have donors who just email us and say, I'm going to write you a check. You need to do this project. And then there's an annual membership fee of $200 a year. And typically the annual membership fee is paid for either by a Main Street office or by a tourism office. So I originally approached Cape Charles Main Street and I said, hey, here's this amazing story of this man, Peter Jacob Carter. We actually have a donor to do this. Would you be willing to underwrite the annual membership fee? And the Main Street program said no, unfortunately. They thought it was a little outside of their bailiwick and that they didn't have the staff time to attend to this. So then we went to the Eastern Shore Tourism Office, who said no. So then we're back to talking with Jennifer and your town manager about the town picking it up. So I hope, fingers crossed, we can still get this to happen. The way that our signs are actually built is it allows us this annual membership fee to mean that if the sign's ever hit or damaged or burned out by the sun, we can replace it or fix it. If the sign ever needs to be moved, let's say we find out where Peter Jacob Carter lived, we can pick up and move the sign. That annual membership fee covers that as well. And in a few years, if new scholarship comes out about him, we can edit the sign. It also allows us to produce all the printed pieces, all the maps, all the digital advertisements, brochures, websites that we do to help get people there. And that kind of brings back in that economic development perspective of it again. So that's just a little bit about who we are, what we do, who our audience is, how it's changed, and how we work with communities. So I know I threw a ton at you, and I tried to do it quickly because I would love to hear what you guys think about this project, and if you have any questions for us or thoughts about who we are and what we do. But I guess you could say at the end of the day, we're sort of one massive service-based nonprofit organization. Our job, however, just doesn't stop once the sign hits the ground and the ribbon's cut. We're with our communities for the duration. So it's a really rewarding program, especially now in the midst of COVID, to be able to offer such an amenity and to lift up a lot of these diversity stories specifically right now. So it's been fun, but I'm going to leave this slide up for another minute or so. I also put my email address and phone number in the chat box. And then the other thing I'm going to put in the chat window is a long biography about Peter Jacob Carter. If you don't know him, you will find inspiration in his story. Absolutely. And your own Dr. Carter, resident of Cape Charles, is a descendant of Peter Jacob Carter. So we've been talking with him a little bit. So
hey, Drew,
that's everything I got for you.
Hey, Drew.
Yes.
Man, you just touched on my passions. I love the Civil War in history is my favorite era. And just like you, sure, I read about all the major battles and everything, but I like the small history, the little stuff, the economics of the time, the small towns, the family problems went along with the Civil War and so forth. And you touched on a lot of that. I wanted to bring attention to something you may not be aware of. Over here towards just east of Cheriton, which is east of Cape Charles, there's an old cemetery that was back in the woods. And there's a couple right now that are back in that woods. They've cleared it all out. And these were former Black Union soldiers that were Virginians. And they've uncovered probably about 20 tombstones that were back in the brush. They're clearing it all out. And they had escaped from the Eastern Shore and went over, I think, to Newport News and joined up with a Union Black Army. They were then dispatched to Texas to fight in Texas. Mm-hmm. The primary name is Custis, which is also the last name of the first husband of Martha Dandridge, who became Martha Washington. And the Custis name over here, they had a major plantation just south of Cape Charles. And of course, they owned slaves. So there's a lot of tie-ins of the Civil War with the history of the Custis family and also Black Union soldiers who were from Virginia who fought for the Union. That cemetery is right at the junction of Sunset Road and Seaside Road. It is right now being cleared out by a couple of volunteers over here. So I don't know if you'd be interested in seeing that. I'm going to get some pictures over there. I've been taking pictures all along, but they've really come a long way, and I can send them to you if you'd like.
Yeah, in fact, I'm going to be over your way in May. We have a installation run. I've told you guys, I dropped a secret about this Frederick Douglass sign that we're doing. So when we're done with the Douglass sign in Talbot, we're going to fix a bunch of stuff in Dorchester and then run home down your way. So I'll definitely ping you, Chuck, and I can run over there and take a peek at that. But you know, there's this strange conception, and I get why, that the Civil War is just a white men story. But if you think about the brand of the Civil War, we got Harriet Tubman and we got Frederick Douglass. That's also part of the Civil War brand, right? And I think people tend to forget. But then when you mix in folks like Peter Jacob Carter and you look at his story, or the men buried in that cemetery, or women like Mary Peake, all of a sudden this narrative is so much more diverse and it's vibrant. I mean, the stories for the bilingual soldiers at Ox Hill, I had no idea that both armies had to translate their infantry manuals outside of English because they had recent immigrants on both sides of the struggle. I mean, we recently found a story of a trans man fighting in the Union Army. So we can speak to LGBTQ. I mean, the story of the Civil War is as diverse as the millions of people who were involved with it. And then when you get to Peter's story about him being the lightkeeper at Cherrystone Inlet and everything he did to spur on not only women's suffrage, but what will become the civil rights movement. It's just it's a story that everybody should know. So at this point, with Cape Charles Main Street having said no, I'm reliant on Jen and the town manager, hopefully to come back and say yes on this. But at the end of the day, I just wanted you all to know that we were working on this project, that we had the funding for this project, and that if it does get approved, we would want to make sure that the final text goes through, the stakeholders in Cape Charles, so that you all feel like you're putting forth, Peter's story through your lens. So it's a really humbling program. It's a fun program, but it's also a ton of hard work, which I know you guys are acclimated to. So
Drew, I have a quick question for you. How long ago was it when you spoke with Main Street?
Hold on one second. Bear with me one second, Reggie. Let me take a peek here. I want to say we had approached Main Street about a year ago and never heard back. And then I got a hold of the Main Street director about 3 months ago. Let me check her name. And Medi's been nice enough to keep up with all these emails. She's been very patient with me as I've tried to figure this out. Let's see. The Main Street director,
Karen,
came back on the, bear with me.
We can do this offline, Drew, if you like.
Yeah. They essentially, Main Street came back and said that they didn't have the funding or the staff time, but we didn't ask them for the staff time. It was just the annual membership fee. And then we went back to Jen and the town manager. So my fingers are crossed. We were talking initially about maybe doing the sign over at the Rosenwald School, but then we thought about putting it up where the lighthouse might have been. But at the end of the day, that's going to be for y'all to decide where you're going to want this to be. But yeah, it's a fun program. We had 8 sites along the Eastern Shore we were hoping to do. This is the one that's funded, so it's the lowest hanging fruit. But yeah, it's a good time. If y'all are ever driving around and you see a Civil War Trail sign and it's in bad shape or it's boring, please let me know, because there's only 2 of us. So I need your eyes and ears on the ground to tell us if we're doing a decent job or not. So
one more add-on to what you just said before too. There were over 400 women who fought during the Civil War in combat. So I don't know if you've ever traced back through them and wrote some stories on them, but that's quite interesting too. They were anything from cannonades to actually holding a musket and marching with the soldiers into battle.
Oh yeah, we got stories of women on the front lines, blowing things up. We got stories of women in espionage. Many people don't associate the Civil War with the story of women's suffrage, but in both the North and the South, when the men went off to fight, it's women who took over these spheres of not only political influence, but also industry and technology, right? So a lot of the STEM advancements, science, technology, engineering, and math advancements that happened during the Civil War are being done by women working in laboratories, is what they're calling them. So when the men get home from fighting and they're like, well, we can have our jobs back, I think the women are like, no. And we have this birth of the suffrage movement, right? And it really, those are all Civil War stories.
Yeah.
I mean, the same thing with Reconstruction, and Peter Jacob Carter is a great example of how we start pushing very quickly towards what will become known as the Civil Rights Movement. almost immediately after the Civil War. So yeah, it's a really interesting period. Unfortunately, I think it gets a bad rap because it's been literally whitewashed for so many years. But we've been doing some great work. We're actually working with all the tribes in North Carolina right now to tell their Native American stories. So it's a humbling program, but yeah.
That's the other thing. There were fairly large contingent of slaves owned by what was called the, I can't remember. But anyway, the Cherokee actually owned a bunch of slaves, and they actually took them with them when they went on the forced march to Oklahoma. And there's a whole story about slavery and the Cherokee, where the slaves divorced themselves from the Cherokee, but then later they came back and wanted proof that they were descendants of the Cherokee as well. So there's a whole big story on that as well.
Yeah, I learned something every day I talk to a new community. I learned something more I never knew. So
yeah.
Well, my interest in getting in touch with you, Drew, is due to the fact that we have initiated a project in the Rotary Club about uncovering the invisible history of African Americans in the development of Cape Charles. And I found that the work that you are doing is very similar to what we may have to work on, except the focus will be on the Cape Charles history. And so I think that's why I was very interested in having you over to speak to us, because of the excitement that we have about this project ourselves.
Yeah, and I will say too, so we just wrapped up the Virginia Civil Rights Trail. My team was given the opportunity to be the fabricator for that project. So we didn't write the content, but we installed it, and it's a coalition of almost 20 municipalities southwest of Richmond who got together and created the Virginia Civil Rights Trail. And it's not only a beautiful area to go driving in, but it's incredibly moving, because a lot of the people who are pictured on the signs are alive and dealt with that and forced the issue. And the project was so well received, there's an effort through the General Assembly to make it a Commonwealth-wide trail. So as you all think about your Rosenwald School and your civil rights stories, I would encourage you all to reach out to your delegate and advocate to have Cape Charles really added to the U.S. and Virginia Civil Rights Trail. And again, these multiple trails may be different by historic narrative, but the stories are the same. It's one long story of America messing things up for almost 400 years, but they all tie in together quite nicely. So if we are blessed to bring the Peter Jacob Carter sign into town, even if we don't install it at the Rosenwald School, we're going to want to point people to the Rosenwald School, because that's the next step of your story, right? So, but all that to say, I've taken a half hour. So
look, Drew, thanks for joining us. This has been enlightening. And let me tell you, if you strike out with the town, come see us. Because we net one service organization to another, we're talking $200 a year. And I'm always looking for a way of advertising the Cape Charles Rotary Club. So we could maybe negotiate something. So if Cape Charles can't handle it, or Reggie, if Main Street can't take care of it, I think the Rotary will, I can't speak for the board, but at least we will bring it to the table. And if you, by the tone of this meeting, I think you'll find probably a welcome answer.
Well, I can't thank you enough. It's humbling, and I really do appreciate it. I didn't come here today soliciting funds, but I will certainly keep you all in the back pocket, because I do feel like that this story it needs to be told, and you'll find I'm quite tenacious. So
and so are we.
Well, you all be safe. Please do not hesitate to give me a call or shoot me an email. Again, it's in the chat with the biography, but please be well, wear your masks, and I hope I can see some of you today.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks so much.
All right, Diane. With regard to what we think, say, and do, 1, is it the truth? 2,
all concerned.
3,
Build
Will it
goodwill,
build goodwill and better
better
friendships?
will it be
4,
beneficial,
will it be
Will
Will it be
beneficial
beneficial to all concerned?
And Stanley?
Will we have some fun?
So please
Thanks
remain
for the help.
after the meeting for the historic, invisible history
Yes,
sites meeting.
we're gonna pause the recording, and Jackie has something to say.
I just wanted to say